So, you want to buy a house? Well, buying a house is not as easy as it was 10 years ago due to the rising cost of living and escalating house prices.
What do you mean?
The problem hindering the current generations of Malaysians from buying their first home is the property prices are just too high in comparison to the income of the rakyat. To quote Bank Negara Malaysia Annual Report 2016, since 2012, the increase in house prices in Malaysia has outstripped the rise in income level. Consequently, prevailing median house prices are beyond the reach of most Malaysians. According to a report by Khazanah Research Institute entitled Making Housing Affordable, released on the 24th of August 2015, the Malaysians' all house price grew at a compounded annual growth rate of 3.1% from 2000 until 2009. However, between 2009 and 2014, it grew at a compounded annual growth rate of 10.1%.
What am I gonna do?
Now, the rapid house prices have made it very challenging for the rakyat to buy their homes. And many parties have called for the lending criteria for purchase of property to be relaxed. It may appear that the proposal has some merits, as it helps people who cannot afford to buy their dream homes to get the necessary financing. However, relaxing lending criteria is very detrimental in the medium to long term and will only compound the problem that property prices are too high in comparison with income level. Loan applications are often rejected because banks feel that the credit risk of the prospective borrower is just too high based on their current income level. Furthermore, relaxing lending criteria will only encourage housing developers to price a property higher or worsen the situation for both current and future generations of home buyers. When home buyers take on the loan they cannot afford, they will have to cut back on other areas and have very little or no savings for any emergencies such as illness or accidents. Now, HBA offers the following advice for all aspiring first-time house buyers. Firstly, house buyers should always try to set aside at least 10% to 20% of the monthly pay as savings for the purchase of their first home and for any unforeseen emergencies. They must be prepared to make sacrifices and forego luxuries such as the latest gadget and hipster hangouts. Secondly, aspiring home buyers should not buy their first car. It's a depreciation asset until they have bought their first house. Now, with an existing car loan, the amount of housing loan a home buyer can take will be greatly reduced. Thirdly, know your maximum property price and loan amount. In assessing a customer's credit worthiness, bank will always use the debt service ratio, in short DSR, which is the monthly loan installment as a percentage of the customer's monthly income. Typically, bank will apply the following DSR. For any single loan repayment, the DSR cannot exceed 1/3 or 33.333333% of the monthly income. Some banks may go as high as 40% DSR for the housing loan, but HBA advises against exceeding 33% DSR for the housing loan and a lower amount of 10% DSR for non-essential loans such as a car loan. For all loan repayments combined, the DSR cannot exceed 50% of the monthly income. Some banks may be willing to go as high as 60% to 70% DSR for all combined loans, but HBA recommends not to exceed 40% DSR for all combined loans. Say, your monthly income is 5,000 ringgit a month. Your maximum loan repayment for housing loan based on 1/3 DSR is 1,666 ringgit per month. Assuming an effective rate of 4.6% per annum for the housing loan, the maximum purchase and housing loan are in the table that is in the screen. Look at the screen properly and you understand and analyze it. Hence, if you want to buy a property worth 500,000 ringgit and apply for a housing loan of 450,000 ringgit, the loan application will be rejected as the monthly loan installments for the housing loan of 450,000 ringgit will be higher than 1/3 DSR of your current monthly salary. Fourthly, prepare a realistic budget. Even with a monthly installment of 1,666, you must be able to service it and maintain an acceptable standard of living while saving for emergency as well. It would not be sustainable. You have to skip meals to maintain the loan installments.
I'm starving.
Now, for the average person, buying a property is the single biggest financial commitment in his or her lifetime. Hence, careful thoughts, and planning is a must. There's no shame in renting until you're finally financially ready to buy a home. Amidst the slow economy currently, you can scout for a low enough rental that allows you to save for a future house. Several questions posted over to me, and I've selected 2 of those best questions. Dato Chang, will you be making a video to raise overall financial literacy to guide potential buyers on what one must look out when buying a property as a method to prepare low, medium income household to take on the responsibility of owning a home so that the hard task of ensuring a home for everyone be maintained and house owner do not end up being squatters? Well, foreclosure can devastate a family economic and social standing, leaving them poorer instead. Making sure lower and medium income household has sufficient personal financial management skill is more than a supplementary issue. Now, financiers, local authorities or communities benefits for homeowners being better informed of their rights and responsibility as homeowners and borrowers. Now, support for the potential home buyers and owners is crucial. Now, it is an excellent recommendation. I shall make a video along those lines suggested, and we'll come up with a home ownership education program that will entail the do's and the don'ts and the pre and post education before they search for a home or sign the sale and purchase contract. Thank you. The second question, Dr. Chang, with the economic climate and the continuing global pandemic, would it be advisable to buy or rent a property? What is the ideal age to buy a property? Should I continue to rent indefinitely? Wow. That's a question with 3 sub-questions. Now, buying a home is typically the largest and most complicated financial commitment most people will ever make. This is the phrase used whenever there is talk of home ownership. Now, buying and owning a house is a riskier proposition for household compared with renting. Buyers take on enormous debts, sign multi-year loan agreement, and become responsible for homeowners' costs of their homes. Now look at the current loan moratorium. Some actually cannot afford to continue their loan installments and must suffer the fate of defaults and foreclosure. Since a rental does not build personal entities or equities, renters should consider both market condition and their financial standing. What's the ideal age to buy a property? There is no right age for when a Malaysian should buy a property, saying it all depends on whether they are financially ready to make such purchases. There's no magic number here. As long as the buyer is financially ready, but the ideal age would be between 25 to 35 years old, and then taking a housing loan of between 20 years to 30 years, till that loan repayment stops before the borrower reaches the mandatory retirement age of 60. I think I will elaborate further in my next video. The third question here is, should I continue to rent indefinitely? Would it be advisable to continue renting indefinitely to stay cash rich until retirement? Well, it's all down to personal preference, cash rich or asset rich. While property is viewed as more than just a roof over the head and as a security when owner is no longer able to work or generate sufficient revenue to continue renting, some would actually opt to rent instead of buying. Hence, there is no single rule that must be forced down on everyone. However, most people, especially in our Asian culture,
Mulan
will prefer to legally own a property instead of renting in perpetuity. Well, thank you for the excellent questions. My next talk will be what you should look out for when buying from a property from developers house or apartment. My talk will look at identifying licensed housing developers, understanding the tenure of land, building plans, approvals, and the various sales and marketing gimmick. See you in the next episode.